Many Magic the Gathering players ask the question, is it worth it to buy the brand new Duel deck, Nissa vs. Nixilis? Nissa vs. Nixilis has two flashy mythic planeswalkers that both are played in Standard, with alternate art and foil being added perks. But does this product have anything beyond just the two mythic planeswalkers, or has it delivered the all-too-common Duel deck fate of attempting to be a product for everyone and thus ending up as a product for no one? Let's take a look. Nissa vs. Nixilis contains the following. Let's start with the best thing about this product, the Planeswalkers. Now, I have no idea if the inclusion of Nissa and Nixilis was an intentional way to provide two mythics that are being played in Standard, or if it was just a storyline flavor choice that coincidentally ended up being a great value to the common player. But nonetheless, we have Nissa, we have You get both if you buy this. And even if you don't buy this, the game itself benefits greatly from the reduction in prices that these two Standard playable cards will see. And even though Nissa is falling out of favor a bit in Standard, she's seen successful play recently and likely can again. Nixilis is faring a bit better these days, but however you look at it, these are a decisive improvement over certain Planeswalkers of the past that were included in Duel decks. Walkers like Vraska, Koth, and Tybalt were always disappointing inclusions for the Standard environment of the time. Oh, Tybalt, you're a walking joke. But here is something that leapt out at me that you may not have noticed, and that's the duration that these Planeswalkers will remain legal in Standard for. One of my biggest complaints has always been that Duel decks contained Planeswalkers that were already on the way out of Standard, thus giving us a very short time of play. Looking back at past sets, for example, Venser vs. Koth was released on March 30th, 2012, and both Venser and Koth were to rotate out on October 5th of that year, 6 months later. Keep in mind this was during the old once-a-year rotation where the 2 to 3 months that led up to the fall set were wildly considered a dead time in Standard. Continuing on, Sorin vs. Tybalt, which was released on March 15th of 2013, had Sorin and Tybalt rotate out on September 27th, 2013, 6 months, 2 weeks later. Jace vs. Vraska was released on March 14th of 2014, and both Jace and Vraska rotated out on September 26th of that year, also 6 months and 2 weeks later. Noticing a trend yet? Elspeth vs. Kiora on February 27th, 2015 was released, and then Elspeth and Kiora were due to rotate out October 2nd, 2015, 6 months, 3 weeks later. So how long will Nissa and Nixilis be in Standard for, and how does this compare to the previous sets? Well, Nissa and Nixilis are released September 2nd, 2016, and rotation will occur for them on May of 2017, which means they are good for Standard for 8 months. This is a very important improvement. Again, I have no idea if this was on purpose, but I hope it was. When you buy a product that contains Standard playable cards that are about to rotate out, it is much less worth it than a product where those cards can actually be played for a while. And while a 2-month increase in the typical Duel deck expiration date isn't as much as I'd like, I mean, personally, I'd like the Standard to be 1 year before those mythics rotate out minimum, this is still a marked improvement and something Wizards should be applauded for. And again, let's hope they know they did this and it wasn't just a happy accident. What about financial value? If I were to purchase the individual cards from this product, the total cost to me would be about $46.65. That's using TCG Player market pricing. The MSRP of a Duel deck is $19.99. So even though prices will indeed continue to drop, you are getting more than double your money at the time of release. But just what are you getting? how many of these individual cards see play and have noticeable financial value? Well, of the 120 cards in here, the total value being $46.65, how many do you guess have a value of over $1 each? The answer is 6. Only 6 cards have a value of more than $1 each. And keep in mind, these prices are pulled shortly before release of the Duel deck and are certain to drop. So to purchase just these 6 cards individually, you would need to spend approximately $24.13. Considering the Duel deck is only $19.99, getting the other 154 cards, many of which do have values between 50 and 90 cents, and some of which actually see limited uses in other formats, isn't a bad deal. But since prices will inevitably drop like a rock, and the prices I am showing you are for the non-Duel deck cards, this is far from an outstanding value either. What the deck lacks is any valuable reprints beyond the Planeswalkers. Yes, I know I always ask for a lot in the way of reprints for these Duel decks, but reprints have to go somewhere. And since Wizards has made it very, very clear that meaningful reprints will no longer go into block sets, then inserting them strategically into products like Duel decks needs to become the rule. 2 Planeswalkers from Standard is a great start. Now let's keep going. No, I'm not going to say Ob Nixilis' deck should have had Damnation. I mean, it should have. Or if not there, then Conspiracy 2 should have had it. Or if not there, then Vintage Masters should have had it. Or if not there, then Modern Masters should have had it. Or if not there, then Fate Reforged should have had it. Or if not there, then Born of the Gods should have had it. Or if not there, then From the Vault Annihilation should have had it. But I'm getting off topic. The deck could have contained moderate cards in need of reprinting. For example, Might of Old Krosa and Nissa's deck, and Inkmoth Nexus and Ob Nixilis' deck would have really done a lot for decks in Modern, and I really doubt it would have affected the playability of these decks much. Other inclusions could have been, I don't know, Oracle of Moldiah, Collected Company, Lotus Cobra, Ancient Stirrings, Mind Funeral, Dismember, and on. Cards of that value in these colors could easily have found a place in these decks, giving us needed reprints outside of a block set. What about gameplay? While fun is always going to be subjective, these 2 decks are not very well balanced. Of particular note is the fact the black deck is overloaded with flyers. Fetid Imp, Foul Imp, Cadaver Imp, Desecration Demon, Pestilence Demon, which are supported with a lot of Death Touch blockers and a host of removal. While the green deck is much more mid-range aggro, with only defense against flyers being Thornweld Archers and Cloud Thresher. And that's it, and there's nearly no removal. And instead of a super fast ramp strategy to outrun black, the Nissa deck is largely based around building up your creatures with counters, strategy that is very depressing every time a fatty gets Doombladed, and then an army of flyers from your opponent swoops in for the kill. While there are still going to be plenty of games where green will hold its own, you will likely often feel that black has the major advantage. And for newer casual players, these decks will need major adjustments to get them even. Quite frankly, maybe Ob Nixilis' enemy should have been Gideon, as white can handle black a lot better. Or maybe Whirlwind just needed a reprint here. Collectors will be happy with the great new artwork on cards like Crop Rotation, Doomblade, Ambition's Cost, and especially Nissa and Ob Nixilis. In fact, a lot of this art shows potential to become people's preferred artwork. Final conclusion, intentional or not, the inclusion of 2 Planeswalkers that see Standard play, and will be in Standard for the longest period of time for any Duel deck in recent memory, is the biggest success of Nissa versus Ob Nixilis. While the artwork is going to appeal to collectors, beyond the Planeswalkers, playable cards are noticeably lacking, especially in terms of needed reprints for formats like Modern. If you are a casual, new, or returning player looking exclusively for fun, the decks are not properly balanced. Grade, this is a C+, B- depending on your needs. The inclusion of played Standard Planeswalkers who will be legal for the next 8 months goes a long way, but the lack of balanced decks and the lack of reprints outside the 2 named cards weighs it down. This Duel deck had the potential to be great, but still needs some improvement. I hope very much this video has been of some help to you. What grade would you give this deck and why? Let me know in the comments below. And remember, whether you're buying Duel decks or just packs of Magic, try and spend that money where you spend time playing this great game. And that's at your local game store whenever possible. You're supporting your Magic community.